Hello. Um, I've been in the Joyce hole lately. Um, in Ulysses. I'm only to like chapter 5. Um, but thus far, I'm really liking it. I'm fully sucked in. I'm like, holy cow. Chapter 3 rung my bell a little bit because there's just like such a garble of references. Um, like every sentence, there's some obscure reference in it. Some of them I know, and some of them where it's like, okay, I can track what Stephen's thoughts are going towards here. Um, but then others, it's like, he'll just throw in some random thing. Where it was like, here's some little ditty from like some little nursery rhyme or something. Some Irish rhyme here or there, which I'm like, oh, I have no knowledge of any of this. So, reading Ulysses, I've got the big annotated book, the big book of annotations or whatever. I got the cheat sheet. Just not, I mean, it's not really a cheat sheet because it's one thing to know what he's referencing, it's another thing to put together why he's referencing it and to see what the greater context of it is and what's really going on. And good night. Stephen, what a nerd. I love it. It's so great. At the same time, you can't help but once again, envy the brilliance of this guy, but pity the disturbance because he is disturbed and disconnected from reality. But I can relate. Even like this month, even the past almost 2 months, I felt very, very disconnected from reality. I don't know if you guys ever get this, where it's almost like you're kind of numb to the world, and you live almost entirely in your head, and you're not really you're with people, but you're just like a husk. You're a shell of a person around them. Whereas you're just bored, kind of, more or less. And you're wondering what's next? What's the next thing in life? Or you have some exciting thing that pops up, and you kind of go through these waves and these seasons of like an incline where you're there's something that you're going towards where it's oh, this is getting really exciting. This climb is really exciting. Then you get to the peak and it's great, but then it actually doesn't even dip. It just goes down a little bit and then it just goes flat lines. And I kind of felt like a flat line for me. I had a dip and a flat line. And in the flat line, I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? I'm mirthless. I'm totally mirthless. I don't think I'm depressed. Or at least if I am depressed, I don't want to say I'm depressed. Anything but to say I have depression. Yeah, do I put a gun in my mouth every night? Yeah. No. Yeah. I would think about eating my gun every night. Do I have depression though? Hell no. No. I'm just kidding. Okay, I am kidding. Did I put my gun in my... No, I didn't. Don't freak out. Actually, you probably wouldn't freak out. You probably want to see it on camera, you sicko. Alright, you know what? That's it. You probably are a sycophant that watches Live Leak. No, I shouldn't be so mean. Look, I watched Live Leak myself. I've seen the video of the guy shooting his head with a shotgun. All right, we've all seen it. We've all been there. I would never kill myself, though. Now, see, this sounds like I'm actually really depressed, and I'm just a really good actor. Because this is all a facade. You're seeing into the deep, dark side of me. So I'm actually deeply disturbed. You see, this is symbolic, because I'm showing you the light side on this side, but this is the dark side. This is actually the dark side of me. And you can't see my eyes. God, this is gay. Okay, but Joyce. Reading, Joyce tells you a story through somebody's thoughts in a totally unstructured, yet very structured, because it's all, the story is structured, the thoughts are not. The thoughts connect to things, and there is a structure. However, the way that you're going through it, it's not like, and then this character did this and said this and was thinking this exactly in complete sentences. No, it flows weirdly. It like stops in certain places and then goes somewhere totally different. But then it has a way of kind of like circling back. Like the first chapter, and I can't say this for okay. Keep in mind I'm only to the 5th chapter, but this, I mean, what I've gotten so far has told me enough of how this is probably it's gonna get worse. I know it does. Not worse. I mean, I really like it. But chapter 3, like I said, I was like, whew, this is gonna take a lot of read-throughs to even get close to scratching the surface on what this is. But there's just so much there. Things connect all over the place. And it's funny because it's almost like it's very self-referential. It's like these characters are referencing things in the past that they thought, and just kind of it's so funny how it mimics very much how real thought works. But yeah, reading like how Stephen thinks and how he's sort of disconnected, and he's like, he'll be talking to somebody and then totally like he just wanders off into some other avenue of thought. It reminds me of like myself in some ways. Stephen does, but Stephen is like a warning. He's like what Elisha Long would say is the idiot. He's the idiot. He overthinks. However, I mean that's kind of the whole time he has to think because he wants to be a poet, and so he uses his environment and sensations, and because everything reminds him of words, and words are what he's trying to make his life, his livelihood off of, pretty much, because he wants, like I say, he wants to be a poet. Of course, his dreams in this part are a little bit crushed because after Portrait of the Artist, he moves away from Ireland because he's done with God and country. Okay. He quits the Catholic Church. He's like, I'm done with this. I'm going to start my own religion, which is art is dedicating my life, inventing myself, right? Daedalus, the inventor, right? But since he's a Christian, he grew up, he's got the Catholicism heavily bred into him. He's going to mix in like this sort of devoutness that he has from his upbringing, mixed with the Greek part of him, the artificer part of him, which stately Plump Buck Mulligan in the first chapter comments on that as like, you still got that Jesuit strand in you. You bloody Jesuit, but you just got it injected the wrong way. Right? Because he doesn't, his mom dies. His mom dies and he refuses to pray at her grave or pray at her deathbed. which is a totally messed up thing to do. It's like he's religiously convicted not to do it. Whereas any normal person, even if you're an atheist, would do it out of respect for your mom, because to respect your mom's wishes at the very least. Okay, even if you don't believe in God, you can at least go there and do the action to please and satiate your mom. No, not Stephen, though. No. It's against his principles. So he kind of worships himself in a way. He's extremely selfish. But yet, like, he's a complicated case, man. It's like, which is where, okay, stately plump Buck Mulligan, I really like. Okay, he's a blasphemous kind of an asshole, but at the same time, by the way, some electrician at the job site drew a penis on my knee. This is my cock knee. So that if you spotted that, I got graffitied. A disturbed electrician drew a dick on my knee with a 10-foot pole. Does that make sense? No. He taped a marker to a 10-foot pole and drew this on my knee from long range. But Buck Mulligan ribs Stephen and gives him guff, you know, which Stephen takes very personally. You know, Buck Mulligan, Malachi Mulligan, two dactyls, has a Hellenic ring. Could be more sensitive to Stephen. Okay, undoubtedly he could be more sensitive. When he says, you know, he offends Stephen when he says, oh, it's just Steve, like Stephen walks in and he says, oh, he comments, oh, it's just Stephen, like he's talking to his aunt or somebody who's there. It's like, who's there? Oh, it's just Stephen. His mother's beastly dead. Which, Buck Mulligan is a medical student, so presumably he's like dealing with cadavers a lot. But he's an atheist, and so he thinks about human beings as, you know, a beast, pretty much. Like, yeah, there's not, you know, there's the old Circe effect. So he's just like, well, what? I mean, I see dead bodies all the time. So calling her a beast is not, it's not an insult to her. You know, I didn't mean to disrespect your dead mom. Stephen says, it wasn't about the offense to my mom. It was about the offense to me. Which just shows you where Stephen, I mean, yes, that's something that you should probably consider, stately plump Buck Mulligan. That was kind of disrespectful one way or another. He's a sort of insensitive guy, but they're young, in their 20s. He's a lively, thumotic man. And look, man, you say stuff, you let your tongue rattle loose a little bit. But Stephen probably needs to get. It's weird because he's so sensitive, but he's sensitive in like a very weak way. Stephen's a very weak guy. Like, he can't take that, really. He can't take subtle ribbing, necessarily. He can a little bit, but he doesn't like plump Buck Mulligan. But it's great, man. I really like Joyce. Joyce is very fun to read. And to find out that a lot of things that Joyce puts in in his stories are real characters that he's seen. Everything is mapped out perfectly of Ireland, or of Dublin, is it? Yeah. In Ulysses. Okay? Like, he wasn't there when he wrote it, but he knows the place so well, and if he needed, apparently, if he needed some information on a specific thing, he wanted this book to portray Ireland in such a way that was almost photorealistic in his writing, which is crazy. So he would mail people that were there that he knew to go and look at the places and describe it exactly in his most excruciating detail as possible, so that he knew how to write about it. But a lot of the characters that are in here are based off of real people that he met, including Stately Plumpuck Mulligan. And in this is something that I find so funny, is that you want to be careful around you. You know, I've never known anybody like this, but presumably you want to be careful around good poets, good writers. You probably don't want to make an enemy of them, because they're going to lambast you in their art, and it's going to outlive you, so you're going to be remembered as the dumbass. I mean, think about Plato. That's exactly what what he does in the dialogues. Like, this symposium, you know, he's making fun of these guys, and we're still talking about them 2,000 years later. And Stately Plumpuck Mulligan knows this. And so he kind of like holds himself back a little bit from his like making fun of Stephen in some ways, because, as Stephen says, he fears my art as much as I fear his art, which his art is more of the witticism and like poking fun, you know. But he fears the steel pen, right? Because Stately Plumpuck Mulligan, Malachi Mulligan, is no dummy. But I like him. He's very disrespectful. He's a blasphemer. The whole first chapter, Mulligan is doing like a mock Christian like liturgical or like ritual, you know, where he's like got the shaving, the lather, and he's making fun of like the Eucharist, and you know, when he dishes out the eggs, when he made breakfast, he dishes out the eggs, and it says, in nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti, in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, you know. But the whole thing is structured like this sort of like ritual that he's doing, but he's sort of doing it in a mocking way. And Haynes, who's this English guy that's staying with him in this tower, he's a real guy too, is based off of this fella that was staying with Joyce and whoever Plumpuck Mulligan was based off of, that woke up one night in the middle of the night having a bad dream about a panther and shot a gun. And like after that, Joyce was like, "Oh hell, I'm out of here. Like, I'm not putting up with that." Which is pretty much like it's referenced in here in the first chapter. But anyways, so far I really like all the references. You know, Haynes and Plumpuck Mulligan, those are the suitors. Okay, because Haynes is the British, right? The invaders of the Irish people are staying with him in his home. And then Malachi Mulligan is sort of usurping and making fun of the religion and his upbringing, but then also placating to the usurpers, the British, right? So he's dealing with the two suitors pretty much, and he's Telemachus, but he's also Hamlet. He's very much, there's lots of references to Hamlet. Stephen can prove that Hamlet's ghost is Hamlet's father's grandfather's. What did he say? You prove by algebra that. What a weird line. It's very funny. It's referenced again. He proves by algebra that Hamlet's grandson is Shakespeare's grandfather, and that he himself is the ghost of his own father. Which is a funny line because he's, Mulligan is talking to Haynes about how brilliant Stephen is. Like, you should hear him on Hamlet. His theories on Hamlet are crazy. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, what's that about? And he's like, Mulligan's like, oh, wait till I got a couple beers in me. I can't put up with this right now. And then he says, he proves by algebra, And then later on in the day, because this whole book takes place over the course of a day, Stephen is working part-time, part-time as a teacher, in which he teaches algebra. And a student comes up to him at one point, which represents Pisistratus, Nestor's son, comes up to him and needs help with this problem, this algebra problem, and he's like helping him with the equation. And he's like in his head repeats that. He's like, prove by algebra that Hamlet's grandfather is my, So it's very funny. It's self-referential, and things echo throughout the chapter, just like things echo in memory. So really good. And so many references. He references, he put me onto some stuff, which I knew about this guy before, but Stephen in the Proteus chapter is thinking about his sort of failed attempts, because he's thinking about, he's in his 20s where he's like, oh, geez, what is this life about? All there is to, live, work, eat, and take a dump, take a piss on the beach. But then he's sort of reminiscing about his failed attempts and thinking about how, I thought I was going to be like some great writer, and people in the future were going to read my writings, and it was going to be some great treasure that would be stored in the libraries of Alexandria. And he references Pico Della Mirandola, who is a interesting character. I want to do a bunch more research on Pico, but he's this guy in the courts of Italy, the Italian. What house was he in? I forget, but he gets assassinated. He gets poisoned apparently. Keep in mind, I'm just talking here. I don't really know much about Pico yet. Okay, but from what I do know, he has this oration on the dignity of man that he writes, and he actually presents to the court, and it's sort of a justification to these Catholics about how actually Aristotle and Plato are synchronous, or a synchronous whole with Christianity, and also the Kabbalah. And he's into magic. He's into the Orphic rites, the Orphic, mystery religion of Orpheus, which I've spoken about before. This guy's nuts. But he makes this oration when he's like 24, which he references. He's like, look, I know you guys are probably thinking, hey, yeah, nice try, you little dip, you little coward, pipsqueak. Hey, nice try, you little, maybe wait till you're a little older. Understandably, he understands this. I don't know, who was it? Was Aristotle said we shouldn't even teach people ethics until they're at least 30. Because I feel this myself. Like 23, I think I've scratched. I think I know enough to say that I know next to nothing, and so it's like, oh boy, I'm gonna cringe at the things that I thought in a year. Like, I already do that. Think about things that I thought, and things that I was, the way I thought about things just a year ago, and be like, holy cow, there's so much I don't know. There's so many experiences I lack. So that's pretty much what Pico's doing in the court. He's like, look, I know, guys, but, if rationality is the through line here, then whatever's rational should be independent of age. If I'm able to say a rational thing, if it's either it's rational or it's not rational. Throw out the not rational and keep the rational. Okay, so take the information and try to disconnect it from my young age. But yeah, and he talks about how, look, you guys remember when Moses ascended the mountain and received the Torah? Well, it turns out that when God gave the law to Moses, he gave him the five, what is it? Is it five? This is bad, I should know this. I'm 23. But there's like 70 other laws. There's like 70 other books of the law. That's the unwritten law. Okay, it was unwritten at first. There's 70 books now, but, because I'll get into that. But, so there's the external, what do you say? There's the common law, which everybody knows, which has got stories and like examples of like, here's why we should be doing this, and then don't eat pork, get rid of your prepuces, and here's the law. But then there's the secret stuff, which only the high tier guys know about within the tribe, right? And this is the secret, the mystical rites. And he says, listen, guys, it took great pains to retrieve these 70 books. All right, this is written about in some apocryphal book called Ezra, Second Ezra or something. He says in it, he describes it as the stream of knowledge, this well of knowledge, or the stream of knowledge, but it's esoteric knowledge. It's not, okay? So that means that there's deeper symbolic levels to the law that everybody knows about. He says, now I know you guys are probably getting a little freaked out about this information, but keep this in mind. We can see the same things with Plato. Okay? You read the dialogues, you get an idea of how Plato's thinking about metaphysics. But then you got the later tradition, which is like, no. That's all the, there's a word that I'm looking for. The, external, the, explicit. There's the explicit things that he says, and then there's this implicit, deeper underlying meaning, which only the few know about, the deep, the occult knowledge. And Aristotle says that in the metaphysics, all the things that he said about the metaphysics are both published and unpublished. Let that rattle around in your brain a little bit. So if these guys say this, and we all like Aristotle, clearly. We all like Plato, clearly. Then you shouldn't throw out what I'm saying about Moses. Now, I got my hands on these books, guys, and it turns out the Jewish esoteric occult meaning behind the Torah, it actually proves the Trinity and Aristotelian metaphysics and Platonism. Also, you're not going to believe this. It all lines up with the Orpheus cult and Who was it? Zoroaster. And Zoroastrianism. It all lines up with the Chaldeans. Okay? So we should start thinking about astrology and magic. And then Pico, he has all kinds of stuff about astrology. Actually, he doesn't like astrology, but he likes magic, which has to do with all this like astrological stuff. I don't know enough about that to really know why he doesn't like astrology. But he's like, look guys, there's good magic and there's bad magic. The bad magic comes from the demons, the good magic comes from God. All right, pretty simple distinction there. There's natural. He said there's some quote that he had, which was like blew my mind. He says that that magic is the practical use of natural science. Which is a fascinating sentence. Yeah. Magic is the practical use of natural science. So then, better break out the book, the Key of Solomon, start drawing circles, and pay attention to the stars. So I got a deep dive on the Chaldeans probably, and the Babylonian astrologers, because ultimately, these guys, they look at the stars to receive information about what's going on down here, because they have the idea that, well, if we're fascinated firstly by the fact that when that bright thing goes wherever it goes, now all of a sudden we see these lights all over the place, and we have this other bright thing which is in the sky, and this corresponds with all types of stuff. What's going on here? These must be some sort of deities. And so if you want to, this is a crazy poll right here. If you want to know things about reality down here, we have to look up. That's why whenever you want to know a fact, somebody tells you to look it up. Think about it. I don't know. That's stupid. But maybe, I don't know, I could be right about that. You look up to the stars to find out about stuff down here. And you're going to find out all kinds of, there's like, oh, well, under this star in this hour, it corresponds to money making, where it corresponds to making friends, or doing some type of evil, or necromancy. This hour and this star, this planet corresponds to talking, communicating with the dead. This is all Kabbalistic stuff, the Key of Solomon. But just strange stuff, So I've got a deep rabbit hole there. Along with the Orphic weird mystical cult as well. Why am I into this stuff? I don't know. Some people are like Lord of the Rings. Some people like Star Wars. Some people like Harry Potter. And here I am reading Orpheus. But, phew. Yeah, nerd mode. Let's just read the Orpheus's hymn to the moon. Here, wait, not the moon. Let's do the one where it's to nature. I really like the one that it makes to nature. Now these are all like part of mystic rites, by the way, and Thomas Taylor has them like labeled as to like what's going on during the rite. So, he's got all these sort of like prayers or like hymns to like all these different, Jupiter, Juno, Pluto, Neptune, the clouds, Jove, the sea, Proteus, the Nereids. Come on, Where's nature? I should have marked it. This is a good one. Just, it's worth the wait. Hold on. Adonis. The fates. To justice. To nemesis. To Mars. To law. To health. So, they're like burning different aromatics during like all these things. And they're doing all kinds of weird stuff like washing their hands with honey. Which I just have a problem with. I mean, I like honey a lot. But I have a weird thing about I hate getting my hands sticky. I'm like, come on, where is this? I must have skipped over. But all these things are like symbolic, you know. Because that's where it's like the Neoplatonists like Iamblichus and people like that, they're like, well, Plato really just sort of carried the torch from Orpheus. Like, they were thinking what we were thinking before us, and we just sort of like, Plato just sort of put it together. He was the best. You know, all these guys that came before, even the Egyptians, like, they really like the Egyptians. All these people groups that turns out we were all thinking about the same things. They were all Platonists. Which, I don't know, maybe they're right. I'm not a scholar on this stuff, and I'm under-researched. But it's very interesting. I would like to become an expert on this. Just why? Nobody cares. Literally nobody cares about this stuff. Oh, here it is. To nature. Nature, all parent, ancient and... Let me start over, and then we'll end. Nature, all parent, ancient and divine, O much mechanic mother, art is thine, heavenly abundant venerable queen, in every part of thy dominion seen, untamed, all taming, ever splendent light, all ruling, honored and supremely bright, immortal firstborn, ever still the same, nocturnal starry shining, glorious dame, thy feet still traces in a circling course, by thee are turned with unremitting force, pure ornament of all the powers divine, finite and infinite alike you shine, to all things common and in all things known, yet incommunicable and alone. Okay, so right there, even to all things common and all things known, yet incommunicable and alone. It's the force which is driving nature. So, to all things common and all things known, in the way that we can observe the functions of nature and the cycles of nature, and we can create structures to it, but we can't know the thing itself. Incommunicable and alone. Without a father of thy wondrous frame, thyself the Father whence thy essence came, all flourishing, connecting, mingled soul, leader and ruler of this mighty whole, life bearer, all sustaining, various named, and for commanding grace and beauty famed, justice supreme and might, whose general sway the waters of the restless deep obey, ethereal, earthly, for the pious glad, sweet to the good, but bitter to the bad, all wise, all bounteous, provident, divine, a rich increase of nutrient is thine, Father of all, great nurse and mother kind, abundant, blessed, all supreme, all spermatic mind, mature, impetuous, from whose fertile seeds and plastic hand this changing scene proceeds, all parent power to mortal eyes unseen, eternal, moving, all sagacious queen, by thee the world whose parts in rapid flow, like swift descending streams, no respite known, on an eternal hinge, with steady course, is world with matchless unremitting force. Throned on a circling car, thy mighty hand holds and directs the reins of wide command. Various thy essence, honored and the best, of judgment too, the general end and test. Intrepid, fatal, all-subduing dame, life everlasting, park a breathing flame. Immortal providence, the world is thine, and thou art all things, architect divine. All blessed goddess, hear thy suppliant's prayer, and make my future life thy constant care. Give plenteous seasons and sufficient wealth, and crown my days with lasting peace and health. So you're getting a lot of like Heraclitean ideas here. At least that's what Mr. Thomas Taylor is reading into that as well. Mature, impetuous, from whose fertile seeds and plastic hand this changing scene proceeds. So everything's in constant flux and change, and one thing rises, dies, and turns into this other thing, and it's this constant like weird intervening like death, birth, rebirth cycle, and it's chaotic, yet it's cosmonic, if that's a word. There's a method to the madness. So he's basically saying that nature, in this sense, is represented as a faculty of the demiurge within the sort of Neoplatonic idea, which it's weird because I don't exactly like. Apparently, there's the demiurge, which is the essence, but then the essence has energies, almost like in the Orthodox tradition, the essence energy distinction with God. It seems like the demiurge in here, which is an emanation from the one or the God basically, but it's a sort of the demiurge itself, which is the creator, is a energy or an emanation from the one, which creates everything else. But that being said, even apparently the demiurge has attributes itself. So nature is like the lowest level of the demiurge, which creates the order and the cycle of it creates the chaotic order, which is, because it's chaotic and it's not, the order of it itself seems to be stagnant. However, it's the parts of it are chaotic and unknowable. I don't know. Okay, that's enough of that. Hope you all are having a good weekend.